touching story about how a wolf saved his mistress from his own mother. Maria Timorevna was waiting for her daughter Valentina to be released from prison. The young woman is kind and does not hurt anyone, but she entered prison because she made a trivial mistake. The young woman lived with her mother in a beautiful house in the village, and although Valentina wanted to attend the institute in the city to study there because she dreamed of becoming a professional plastic artist in the future, her mother did not allow her and forced her to stay with her at home. The girl stopped studying and started working 1 meter at the village as a saleswoman. She was not happy with that job because her ambition was much greater than that. But her mother was happy with that because her daughter earns a good salary from the job and helps her with the household expenses. The young woman used to deal with some customers who came to the shop with a loan, as they used to take things and promise that they'll pay for them in the future. But they did not do that, and as the months went by, the owner of the store found that there was a big financial gap in the store and asked the young woman to return the money to the store immediately. Then the young woman went to those whom she'd loaned and asked them to pay her the money, but they refused. Then the owner of the shop filed a complaint against the young woman. Valentina was required to pay that large sum or go to prison, and since she did not have the money because her mother spent it all, she was sentenced to 5 years in prison, and she was immediately transferred to a prison in the capital, Moscow. In prison, the young woman enrolled in a composition of painters, and she was working very hard to fulfill her dream of becoming a plastic artist. She was not sad because she'd entered prison, because she was very upset at the way she lived with her mother and was looking for more freedom, which she found in prison. Valentina did not receive any message from her mother, Maria Timorevna, since her entry into prison, as the mother was ashamed of what her daughter did. And she tried to forget about her and never think about her. She regretted having had a stupid girl who had put her reputation down. The young woman, unlike the inmates who was with her in the prison, was cheerful and smiling with everyone, and thanks to her lightness and charming beauty, she was able to attract the attention of the director of the prison in which she was staying, but she avoided communicating with him. The young woman obtained a degree in plastic art from the prison she was in, and she benefited from a 1-year reduction in the sentence when she was released from the prison. The young woman went directly to the village in which she lives in order to meet her mother there because she missed her so much, and she's not seen her for a whole 4 years. When the young woman arrived at the nearest station from the village in which she lives, she got off the train and decided to walk that distance of 11 kilometers. The young woman was carrying a small bag with her, with things and some food she brought with her from Moscow, walking in the middle of the forest road and enjoying nature. I found that freedom is priceless because she spent the entire 4 years in prison and realized what freedom means. The young woman thought that her mother might not receive her at home because she was upset with her and thought about going to her father, but the latter did not like her either and doubted that she was his true daughter because he discovered that Marina Timorevna was cheating on him when they were a couple and he divorced her while she was pregnant. In the end, the young woman decided to go to her mother's house and see what would happen. As the young woman approached him to get out of the forest in which she was walking, she suddenly heard a strange sound, and one of them was in pain. And when she approached the source of the sound, she found there a little wolf, wounded by its front feet and unable to stand on it. The young woman approached the little wolf and noticed that it was collapsing and was about to die, because it had most likely not eaten for a long time. Then she decided to take it with her to her mother and take care of him. The young woman thought that this wolf would surprise her mother. When the young woman entered her mother's house, she found her in the kitchen, and there she jumped towards her and embraced her for a long time. Well, the mother did not show any joy for her daughter's return and was satisfied with welcoming her with simple words. The mother noticed that her daughter held an animal in her hand and immediately asked her where she brought it. And when Valentina told her that she'd found him injured in the forest, the mother asked her to get rid of it immediately because she did not want the animals to enter her home. The young woman was very disappointed by her mother's reaction, as she knew she was not welcome in that house. She put the little wolf outside the house, gave him some food from her bag, and then kept thinking of some way to help him without entering the house. The young woman built a small house out of wood in the garden of the house and put the little wolf there and kept checking it every day and watching the development of its wound. She wanted to find a job because she tells you that it's the only way for her to earn money and thus gain her mother's approval. But she did not find a job and lived in that hell with her mother. When the young woman noticed that the wolf was suffering from a cold outside the house, she gave her mother an amount of money that she'd brought with her from prison and asked her to allow the animal to enter her home with her to sleep under the warmth. And when the mother agreed, then Valentina became the entry of the little animal under her bed and let him sleep there. The young woman did not have food to feed the little animal, and she began to share with him the meal that was received from her mother. But when she noticed that the little wolf began to recover and was able to take care of himself, she began to think about releasing him and leaving him to return to the forest because it's the most suitable place for him. Maria began treating her daughter as her slave, assigning her difficult tasks and scolding her every time she did not allow her to go out to the village because she was ashamed of her and after entering prison, but the young woman remained patient because she had no alternative. One day, while Valentina was getting ready to sleep after a tiring day, she was surprised by her mother as she walked into her room. She was angry and wanted to tell her something. The young woman was very afraid of that look on her mother's face and kept trembling in her place. The mother showed a big stick and started beating her daughter with full force. She wanted to get rid of her because she could no longer bear it. It brought her shame and she no longer deserved to survive. The first blow that the mother did to her daughter was on her head, where the young woman fell unconscious, and blood began to flow profusely. And while the mother wanted to deliver the second blow to her, which was definitely going to be a judge, the wolf appeared from under the bed and jumped towards her and grabbed her by her hands, holding the stick with his strong jaws, and began to bite her until he forced her to throw the stick on the ground, then pursued her until he took her out of the house. The wolf returned to the house and licked Valentina from her face until she regained consciousness. Then he helped her stand up and left the house together. And when the neighbors saw her in this condition, they took her to the hospital. The young woman stayed in the clinic for several hours, and there a young nurse saw her and approached her and tried to find out the cause of that wound. Then the young woman explained the situation to him. The young man stayed at Valentina's side and liked her very much. He kept meeting her whenever she returned to the clinic to change the bandage on her hand. And with the passage of days, he liked her and started inviting her to go out with him for coffee, so that the relationship between them developed until they were finally married. The young woman kept meeting the wolf that saved her life in a new marital home for several months, but then he disappeared and did not reappear. Valentina did not hate her mother and forgave her for everything she had done for her. The smart young woman found a job position in a new shop that was open in the village and started enjoying her life with her husband, who loves her very much and cares about her.